my point is this. It's just like the words you use in your culture. It's not just that you have those words, it's that you live those words every day.
Welcome to the Jamodi Podcast. We are all surrounded by amazing coaches and leaders. So let's get an inside look at not just what they do, but how they do what they do. After all, becoming the best versions of ourselves is Jamodi, just a matter of doing it. Today we are joined by former NBA assistant coach Kevin Eastman. Before the NBA, Coach Eastman spent 21 seasons as a college coach. He spent 9 years as an assistant coach for the Boston Celtics, winning the NBA championship in 2008. From 2013 to 2016, he was an assistant coach for the Los Angeles Clippers. Coach Eastman is the author of the book, Why the Best Are the Best, and he spends his time speaking to teams and organizations, sharing the lessons he's learned on the most important components of success. Before we hear from Coach, take a moment to subscribe to our podcast and follow us on social media at Jamodi Podcast.
How are you?
Oh, I am great. And I just want to say first, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me. And I'm really honored just to have you on.
No, my pleasure. Matter of fact, Matt hit me yesterday, Matt Braun. So that can be a good thing or a bad thing, depending on the day.
I get that. He's such an awesome guy. We've been able to build a friendship over the years, both being in Dallas. And I'm thankful that he did that, just so you're not coming into a complete stranger. Who is this random guy from DFW that reached out to me? And so that's good. That's good.
Yeah. How are your podcasts been going?
It's been so much fun. It kind of started. Obviously, a lot of these things started during the pandemic. You know, when we're sitting around at home. I'm a teacher, a high school teacher, but you know we can't be at school. And I was talking with a girls coach about shooting, and our conversation kind of flowed to different areas. And one area was a culture building activity that she did with her team. And I just thought, wow, this is great. And these are some of the things that I would love to learn about more. And there's just not a lot of opportunities for, high school coaches that are just faithful in their area with what they do to kind of have a platform and share some of those amazing things that they do with their teams. And that's where it started. And then I've been blown away. I mean, you and I have, besides Matt, no connection, but the willingness of coaches to share, it's been incredible.
Mm-hmm. Well, good.
Yeah.
Good. I'm glad it's going well for you. So you've kind of learned a lot of different things then.
60 plus conversations. And one thing it's done is it's humbled me in a big way to realize that my way is not the only way.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of good things out there. But first, I'd love to ask, a lot of us out here know, I mean, you're one of the best, in my opinion, one of the best Twitter follows out there, just because there's so much, I don't know, negativity and things that are just kind of will tear people down. But I just feel like the messages and the quotes that you put out are always uplifting. Tell us a little bit about what you're doing now with, some speaking things, and then also with your book, Why the Best Are the Best.
Yeah. So right now, we had the pre-pandemic, the pandemic, and then, of course, we're kind of transitioning out of that world, hopefully for good.
Yeah.
But so pre-pandemic, I was doing maybe 60 or 70, what would I call them, on-stage speaking engagements.
Wow.
Per year. And then with the pandemic, it obviously shut down quickly. And then it became more of just like yourself. People were starting podcasts. People were doing Zoom meetings with their teams. People were still having their conferences, but through Zoom or any other program that's out there. So I started to do those. And probably the pandemic year itself, I did about 100 of those that particular year. A mixture of, and all of these are a mixture of speaking to corporate teams or sports teams. And then now it's picking back up again. So I'm back into that mode of the pre-pandemic. So it's an opportunity for me. I've had so many. I've been fortunate to have so many like great experiences and had the opportunity to be around many successful people in sport, in all different sports, and also in the corporate world. So I know not everyone is afforded those opportunities. So my kind of mission is to just share as much as I can with as many as I can to help them kind of reach their goals and dreams that they might have in life for themselves, or if they're a coach for the teams that they coach. Um, so that's where I am today, and still, back out on the speaking circuit.
I get to listen to high school coaches a lot, and a lot of their journeys are similar. Some people played a little bit, and some were high school players. Then they got going in education in junior high, then grinded, worked their way up, and but then they became a varsity head coach. I don't know, and I can't imagine the journey that it takes from where you started to becoming like to being on an NBA staff and working for Coach Rivers, and so just could you take me through that journey of like how you started and how you got there?
Yeah, well, you know, my overall philosophy, I guess, and I didn't know it was that. It's what I did, is just to really, truly try and be the best I can at where I am. So I believe that if you do that and word is supposed to get out, it will get out, right? Kind of like Doc used to call it the basketball gods, right? That the basketball gods will take care of our team if we play right and we play unselfish. And I've carried that over even into my speaking, and probably that was an underlying theme throughout my career. So that was simply what I tried to do. And then when I saw opportunities, I tried to seize them, right? So it could be something like what really started to propel me in corporate speaking was when I was with the Los Angeles Clippers. We had a group that's called the YPO, Young Presidents Organization. And this is a group of business owners who had to make a certain amount of millions of dollars a year, right? And have X amount of employees. So they wanted to do something different in their regional conference that year. So they called the Clippers and said, hey, is there anything you think you guys could do that could give us an experience that our people, even though they make a lot of money, they can't get? You can't
Yeah.
buy the experience. So I came up with let's go ahead and put them through like a real training camp, right? Like as if they were in it on our team. So, and put them through the experience of being on an NBA team. So we had jerseys ready. We had
Oh,
every.
nice.
So we put them through like a typical like summer camp, all the drills, right, that you would go through. So that was they went through station work. That was one third of the group. Another third of the group was watching film and how we watch film and how we teach off of film. They were in our film room. And then the third group, we gave them kind of a typical pregame talk, like what goes on in the locker room before the game. Well, I saw that also as an opportunity. A bunch of business leaders. So I'll for sure go over like game plans and that sort of thing. And then I'll also talk about some things that made us successful, right? And it was that part of it that I thought might resonate with them. And at one point say, hey, we should have Kevin come in and talk to our people. And sure enough, it did. So we took care of everything we needed to do. We actually, as they told me, you gave us an extra bonus because you told us a little bit about what made you guys successful, not just what you say before the game.
Yeah.
So it was kind of a win-win. But so I seized that opportunity. I didn't make it about me because they learned a lot and they learned kind of some inside stuff that we don't tell a lot of people. So I think I was always on the lookout for opportunities, but in such a way where the opportunity might help me, but if I did my job with it, it would really help that group I was working with, right? So, and then the other part of it is, there's right and wrong. and I always try to do right, right? Even if it was maybe at the expense of not being best for me. So those are just a few of the things that helped me along my journey, as well as I was a little bit shy and introverted in my early part of my career. So I figured I had to figure out a way to combat that. And the way I figured it out was through two areas: knowledge and preparation. For my age at that particular time, whatever age I was not going to let anyone out knowledge me about my craft. And then I always wanted to be prepared, right? And what I found was, even though I might have been a little shyer or maybe not sure of myself earlier in my career, I never had to lead conversations really or drive conversations because people were always asking me questions. I can answer any question. Now, to at that particular point in my career, to actually like carry a conversation might not have been quite as good at that. So those are some things that helped me along my path.
You feel like especially what you said about the way you went looking for opportunities, how you didn't make it about yourself, but you were open and willing to take advantage of when they were there. You think that's a message that's common today? Because in cutthroat businesses or wanting to work your way up, uh, I feel like the message so many times is you have to make it happen. You have to break down every door and you have to, step on anybody that you can to get there. Do you find that that's more the message that we hear, but you were able to do it a different way?
Yeah, I mean, it certainly could and maybe is the message that people are receiving, but um, I think that can backfire, right? I think that can be a short term jolt. It's just like I often talk about know-it-alls,
Mm,
and know-it-alls sometimes can get ahead of us early in the game, meaning the game of success, the game of climbing the ladder. But I think ultimately it's the learn-it-alls that eventually pass the know-it-alls. So for me, I think we just have to do what's comfortable to us. And did I miss? Now, I wasn't going out and trying to find opportunities because I was so ingrained in doing the best job I could at where I was. But any opportunity anything that came across my desk or through my life, I would always think about, okay, well, how can I utilize this with this hierarchy? Number one is to help those who asked about me or wanted me to be a part of something. And then number two, how can I make it such that when I'm done this, I might have been able to help myself by letting them know exactly a little bit deeper who I am and how I operate. Right.
yeah.
So I'm not saying the other way is wrong because it's probably helped. Well, not wrong. Uh, the other way is best
Yeah.
because it may have helped those people. But I think, and that has to do with self reflection, right?
Yeah.
You got to know who you are and you got to live within who you are. Because I think smart people, which we hopefully probably feel that many people are that are running companies and giving us. Now I'm giving you the panoramic view of my desk as the sun flying.
I was gonna celebrate you in a second of you're able to hold on a conversation while moving the computer so that the sun it's incredible.
Yeah, that's my afterlife. I'm going to be a producer behind the scenes. But like yesterday, I was on some Zooms, and there was some bad weather coming through. It didn't touch down near us, but there were some tornadoes coming through with states
Oh,
around us. It was so dark outside, and today I'm looking out to our backyard. It is so light. So by the end of the day, I think your listeners and viewers will get a 360-degree look at my office at the top.
oh,
So,
Coach, you can
but
handle any adversity that comes your way. You could handle it.
yeah, well, if this is so now we're getting into the TV portion of
That's right.
my office.
I get
Yeah.
to see your whole study. This is incredible.
So so I think the big thing is figuring out who are you and how do you want to operate? and stick within those.
Yeah.
We've often, one of the things I also talk about quite often is how important values are to not just us personally in our journey and climb up our individual ladders, but obviously to teams and organizations too. And we had that FBI scandal maybe 4 or 5 years ago in college basketball. And I don't know who did what, because I'm not privy to all the facts. But I do know this: if some of the things that were alleged actually took place, I don't think any of those coaches came out of the womb and said, "I just want to be the worst person and cheat my entire way to get to the top." I think they came out with probably wanting to do things the right way. And then I don't, who knows, some outside forces. It could be a potential loss of a job. It could be not enough wins. It could be my reputation's on the line. So I'm going to maybe make an exception here on one of my values. Obviously, the value the exception was in the area of integrity, probably, right?
Yeah.
So I'm going to make an exception here. It'll be okay. It's one time. But what you find out with exceptions is it's easy to make that a habit. Bill Parcells once said, when he was talking about how to put together a team in the NFL, he said, you have to be careful of taking exceptions. He said, one maybe, but if you take one and then two and then three, before you know it, when you look in your locker room, you actually have a team of exceptions, not a team of the culture that you really wanted to establish.
I think
Am I
that,
okay to drink coffee?
excuse me?
Am I okay if I have a sip of
Oh,
coffee?
yes, sir. No problem.
Mhm.
No problem. Oh, that's good. It made me think of George Barber is a basketball coach at a D3 school at Greenville University. And I was talking with him and he mentioned, making the big time where you are. And because I think I'm in a small private school and there's been time, I'm 40 years old, so I'm not young, but I'm not saying that I'm old either. And there's been times where I've wondered, that ambition side of me or that drive comes up and I'm wondering what's next. Like, is there something more that I'm supposed to be doing? And if you get caught in that, you can miss some of those opportunities or even miss the reason of why you're where you're at. I think your idea of, being excellent in everything that you do will kind of help you to make the big time where you're at.
Yeah, and I think I know one thing for sure. If you're not good at where you are, there will not be an opportunity to maybe take in whatever in your mind is a next step up the ladder. So logic states to me that we all should. I think we should anyway, right? We've been
Yeah.
given all of us have been given maybe different gifts. Whatever the belief system is of all the people that are listening to this, whether they're incredibly spiritual, kind of spiritual, or don't believe at all. Somehow we've been given gifts. And I think we have to reflect on what those gifts are. And the gift may be that I am supposed to be working with young people from ages 14 to 17, right? Because I was listening to Frank Martin, who just got the job at the University of Massachusetts. He had been the South Carolina coach, went to the Final Four at South Carolina. And he said something in his press conference. He said, it's not just who they are walking into your building or your program. It's all about who they are when they walk out, right? So it doesn't matter the level. We all have the opportunity to impact, right? So let's do our job where we are. And then I do think ultimately the basketball gods, in our case, our sport, will take care of us in some way.
Coaches, the Jamodi podcast is powered by Biology. What's your BSA score? The Biology Skill Assessment is the only verified skills metric endorsed by the NIA and NJCAA to discover and develop the best talent for your team. This 10-minute, 100-shot test can be taken for free today on the Biology mobile app. Elevate your game.
You've been able to be a part of so many great organizations, locker rooms, and be around so many dynamic leaders. How do you see that culture drives performance?
Well, I think really what culture is all about is creating an environment. So most cultures, I believe, they don't intentionally go out and try and create an environment to be the worst team or organization at what they do. So
That's
most
not
of
that poster's not on the wall at the
yeah,
beginning of the year.
yeah, the which is another thing that Frank said. Speaking about the wall, a lot of people think that culture is the stuff that's written on the wall or in the handbook that they give their team prior to preseason. And he said you have to be careful because you have to make an assessment of, do the sayings on the wall match your everyday actions? And that's part of how the culture drives performance. Because as a leader, uh, I should be the example of our culture, right? So they'll see it each and every day. But in a bigger context, the culture creates an environment that is conducive to success, and it creates therefore an expectation of excellence in most cultures that I've been around. Regardless of the words they use, one of the things that all the words do is they drive you to become the best you can be as an organization and as an individual. So, like for us with the Celtics, when I was with Doc with the Celtics and also with the Clippers, and so much of our culture was based on how can we create an environment where we can all grow, develop, and improve. Because if we can do those three things, that means we're going to get the best out of ourselves. And if we do that, that means it gives us the best chance to be successful that particular year. So our culture was driven by being first class and seeking excellence in every part of it. And that's just not effort. It's just not teamwork, the things that people talk about. It's also in how we traveled, right? If we wanted to be first class, then we had to travel first class, right? And when you think about the NBA and you think about all the travel involved in that level, what a lot of the general public doesn't understand is that, it is a rule that once you play a game on the road, as soon as that game's over, you have to fly to the next city, right? Unless you can prove to them that you're okay spending the night. Now, it's starting to change a little bit now, but we used to have to fly to the next city, which meant many times we weren't getting in till 3 a.m.
Wow.
And then we had a game that day, right? So if you get in at 3 a.m, by the time your luggage is in your hotel room, it's about 4:30. And you know how it is after a game and all that, you're still kind of revved up as a player. You're probably going to bed at 6 a.m. and you have a game that night. So it made sense to us as part of our culture of excellence is to create the environment where we travel in a first class way. We stay at nice hotels, right? So that the environment is such that they can be the best they can be when they finally wake up that day. But it's the weight room. What's that look like? Is that conducive to people wanting to go in there rather than, oh God, I got to lift weights there? The practice court, the locker room, the training room. These are all parts of the environment, which is what a culture creates. And if everything is geared toward being the best we can be with the money we have to do things, let's make it the best it can be. So our players see that we're always striving to be the best, right? And there's many ways to do that. I mean, you have to do it as a team, right? You can't do it as an individual. So those parts of our culture were there too.
When you said that about, because I didn't know initially what direction you're going with being excellent. Because I think so many times as a coach, I mainly think about the basketball portion or the X's and O's and how we practice and how we show up every day. But I think I've missed the mark, and probably a lot of coaches have missed the mark with, and you nailed it, with the money that you have, because I'm assuming our budgets are different.
Mm-hmm.
And but with what we have, the resources we have, I think I've missed the mark on, like, am I doing everything for these young men in the locker room that they have, so that when they walk in there, they think, you know what, being a Faith Lion, it's pretty cool. The equipment room, the weight. So thank you for that reminder, because I mean, I'm sure the rest of our talk's going to be incredible, but that's something that I can take and zoom out and really try to make our environment more excellent than just the practice plan.
Yeah, I mean, think about it. Even pretty much everywhere you go that you've never been before, you're making immediate observations and probably passing judgments,
Hmm.
right? We go into some restaurants and there's French fries all over the floor. It probably says something to us.
One of the lights and one of the letters of their sign, the light is out. That
Yeah,
always just when I see that, I go, oh, I don't know.
yeah. Well, your players are doing the same thing, right? Well, coach keeps talking about be the best we can be, and this is a first class organization. Yet we come in here and 6 of the 9 lights in our locker room don't work,
Yeah.
right? I remember the first job I took as a head coach was Belmont Abbey College, and we repainted the locker room ourselves, our staff, right? Because ultimately it didn't cost that much to buy the cans of paint that we needed, you know. So we try to make the lockers even look a little nicer. You can even see on some of these things shows on like HGTV or something how simple little pieces of wood if you do certain things with it, and it just takes a little bit and a hammer and a nail, and you can make it look like a really like big time place.
Yeah.
So those are the things that I'm talking about, because if growth, development, and improvement are there, and excellence is part of it, and then you break it down into its component parts, um, we always wanted to make sure that they saw it everywhere they would be. Not just, I mean, we knew we had to have the culture surrounding what a team looks like, right? But it's the other parts too.
So I feel like there's quotes and kind of t-shirt slogans and things that coaches will put out, like fight for your culture every day. You got to fight for it every day, and I believe in that. But sometimes, and as a high school coach, I've been as a player in the college arena, but not as a coach in the college arena. And I played in Iceland for 1 year, so I don't know if you can really count that as a professional career. It's the only place in the world that would take me because I'm 6'2" and I wasn't very athletic. But I coach, I took charges. And I
Mhm.
played really hard. But you sometimes really wonder, how hard do NBA teams have to fight for culture? I mean, they're professionals. They're so talented at what they do, and they have amazing leaders and coaches. But how much of a struggle is that for them to fight for the culture they've set up every day?
Well, if it's a perfect organization, you understand that you don't have culture. You don't just have culture. You actually hire and trade for culture, right? And that's all about the fit. If you get people that fit your program, then there's walking in the building. There's a buy-in to the culture. What I don't know that we. I mean, there were times you had to fight, but more times than not, just had to remind,
Yeah.
right? It's just a subtle reminder. Maybe a guy got really selfish and started talking about himself. Uh, and you might go up to him and have a conversation. Hey, look, if you told me when you came on board that you really want to try and win a championship, and you have to agree with me that if we all go our separate ways, we can't get this done. Is that right? And the player always would say, yeah. So you just figure out ways to subtly remind them. And it could be as simple, hey, that's not us. I can remember there was a YouTube I was watching, or maybe I was talking to Jay Billis. Anyway, the story was that when Coach K was early in his career, when they were watching film, maybe he would harshly critique something that happened on film, directing it right at the player, right? And as he's gotten older, just like all of us, I don't know that we mellow. I just think we finally get smarter, right? So anyway, he was saying he was talking to one of the really good players, and something came up on film. And let's say you were the best player, Matt. Coach K turned and said, "Matt, I can just tell you one thing: the best players that have walked this court and played for us, they never did that." And then he moved on. So it was a subtle way to say, "Hey, you're in that group, right? We think you're good, But if you want to get there, the others didn't do that. And then he moved on with it, right? So that was a subtle reminder that, part of their culture is how they play, right? So I think it's more that, even though the word fight sounds good because culture is so important, but
Right.
everybody uses it. Doctors say it all the time. We got to fight for our culture every day. So, fights sometimes can end up with separation.
Yeah.
Right. But I think, so much of it, I think at all levels, but certainly in the NBA, these guys are good. I mean, there's a reason they're there. So I think two words come to mind whenever you're having conversations at that level, or even teaching or having harsh criticism, right? And that's intent and respect. What's the intent of this message? Well, in the case of what we talked about with you, the intent is to get them back on track, to get them really to who they are. That was a little blip, right? That's not really who they are.
Yeah.
It just happened in an emotional moment. And then we deliver those messages with respect. It's amazing how many lack of F-bombs you have to use at that level. Everybody thinks that maybe you do it. It's a little bit a part of the environment that word is used some, but very, very, very few times was there yelling and direct attacks on players or F-bombing guys. You just didn't have to do that.
Yeah.
But that was part of our culture too. Respect was one of our cultural words.
What were a few other of your cultural words, if you don't mind sharing?
Some others?
Yeah, if you don't mind sharing.
Integrity, respect, teamness, and teamness included, what is a true team? What is a true teammate? What is teamwork? Right? So there was a teamness aspect to it. Those were probably integrity, right? Some people might have it stated as high character.
Yeah, character. Yeah.
Right. But probably the same ones that many successful organizations have. But it's just like you had mentioned earlier when we were talking about the book that I had written. The book is centered around basically this. When I was around the best of the best, I asked them, when you were asked about how you got there, what was your answer? Well, the answers were interesting in that no matter what sport or even in the corporate world, because I talked to people who really climbed the ladder there, certain words were used all the time, right? Like intentional was used. I was very intentional about the workouts I had and what I did. Truth. The best of the best want to hear the truth. They don't want to be lied to. Just tell me where I am. What do I need to improve on? So anyway, my point is this. It's just like the words you use in your culture. It's not just that you have those words. It's that you live those words every day. That's what makes a culture. Getting the right fit, right? And really what precedes culture are values and people. Because you can have a great culture, and if you have bad people, they'll take that culture down.
Mm.
You can have a horrible culture and have pretty good people, and we experienced this with the Clippers when we took over. It was kind of a toxic culture. At the core, there was good people. So a bad culture with good people, you can kind of survive, right? So people are really important. Well, how do you choose your people? I believe it's based on your values. Right? Like we never wanted thinking people because we wanted diversity of thought.
Yeah.
But we did want values people because that was important. Like if integrity was one of our key foundational pieces of our culture, we certainly don't want someone in there who's going to skip steps, who's maybe going to lie and cheat to sign a player, say in college. That's totally that's not a fit. Right? So those are some of the words that were important to us.
I'm always trying to think especially if I get to talk with college coaches or someone like yourself that's been at every level. And what's your advice if you're having a young person that's very resistant to the culture, to the change? besides just cut him, let him go? Besides that, what's some advice to bringing him on board?
Yeah, a lot of times what I like to do is um, send messages to them through other people, and in particular, maybe to some well-known celebrity type people. So I often ask the question, hey, who do you respect other than people in your family? Who do you respect? Who do you look up to? Who do you follow in sports? Because if they're probably trying out for your team, they probably like basketball. Most of your players probably like basketball. So they might have a favorite player, that sort of thing. Once I find that out, then especially if it's a potential problem or challenge player, because you won't have 15 of them.
Right.
You might have one or two. So this is an easy exercise to do. And then I would read everything I could on that player that they looked up to, because inevitably there are going to be things they said or their team did, right, that exemplified exactly what you want your team to say and do. And then what I used to do, even with the pro players, like we had one player who wanted to really be a leader of the team, and he just wasn't doing leadership things. And this was in Boston. One of the players he looked up to in sports was Tom Brady. So I read every article in the Boston Globe and the Boston Herald and anything I could find on Tom. And anything that he said relative to leadership, I highlighted it, I made a copy of it, folded it up, put it in an envelope, and then put it in his locker, right? And eventually what always happens is this. At some point, because at the bottom of it, I might write a quick note. Hey, I saw this on something that Tom Brady said that deals with leadership that I thought you'd like. Kevin, right? So he knew it was me at some point every single time. It might not be week 1, it might be week 4. They would come to me and say, why did you leave that one? Boom, there it is. He just opened his front door and said, come on in, help me. And that's what you're trying to do with these players, get them to open their front door to let you in their house, right? So, but because I went through a person that they really respected, see, Tom Brady was sending our messages to him.
Yeah.
Doc didn't have to. So what I'm getting at is that may work for someone on the call that's listening, but what I'm trying to get them to do is think deeper as to how you can reach someone. It could be developing a relationship first before you try and go in and change who they are. It may be finding out their dreams and goals.
Yeah.
Right? Because there are certain things they probably are doing that are helping them get there, but there are other things that they're doing that are keeping them from getting there. So those are just a few of the things, but ultimately it comes down to you got to get eye to eye, face to face, not screen to screen, right? Because now it looks like we're able to do that a little bit more.
Yeah.
And sit down and have a conversation, and also knowing as a leader, you can't change everybody. Someone who's unwilling to change probably is going to be difficult to change. But if you can somehow try as many things as possible, you might hit the button that kind of shines a light in his head.
And even with those players that it does seem like they may not get on board or understand the lessons that we're teaching right now. We're still, especially for the younger people that we get to deal with, we're planting those seeds so that you might not see reap the benefits of that now, but maybe when they're 25 or when they're 30, you get that text, that email back that says, you know what, I appreciate what you said back then. So sometimes it's a little delayed gratification on our end as coaches. We want to, hey, here's a great nugget for you. Your favorite player said this, go change. But nothing works like that. Change never happens like that.
I mean, it doesn't for us.
Yeah.
Who supposedly had all of our stuff together, right? Change is hard. But as a coach or a leader, it's our job to continue to try, right? Because like Frank Martin said, there's the kid who comes into your building and there's the kid who leaves. right? Is that person better for having come into your team or come into your building? And that should be something very, very important to anyone who's a coach or a leader, because think of all the Hall of Fame talks. Think about them. Anyone who gets into the Hall of Fame, I guarantee you one person that'll be in every single speech, because I listened to them all. I listened to them for years. Football, baseball, right? A coach is always mentioned.
Yeah.
It's usually one of three things: a coach, a parent or parent figure, and possibly a priest, a minister, or someone else that has really had an impact on their lives. Well, we're one of the three. Like Zig Ziglar, one of the old time motivational speakers, he used to say, a coach will have more impact in 1 year than I will have in all of the talks I give all over the world, because the player wants to be on the team and you're the coach of the team, right? And that's what he was saying. They may not want to hear, but I do believe kids listen, because they have to listen even to get to the point of disagreeing with you, right? Because they got to hear what you say first, then they're going to disagree. Well, that's step one, right? And then it's up to us to try and figure a way to get them to open their front door.
Man, such great reminders, Coach. And what I really appreciate what you said about the messages that we can send through other people. Everything that you're saying, unfortunately, my brain immediately goes to the times where I fell short or failed in excellence or living out the culture that we've set up. But I've had players come in and, let's just take leadership. I think they have aspirations to be a great leader, but they're not bringing it in the way that they can. I've used other people's words, but I don't know if I've ever gone to the level of, I know that they like this person. So let's Wojo. Steve Wojciechowski was one of my favorite college players. And I just remember him diving, horizontally, poking that ball to his teammate, slapping the floor. And so, or if I'm talking to a player about effort, I may bring up a story about Wojo. And I'm here thinking, this is the best thing that this kid can hear. Well, he's sitting as a 16-year-old going, who in the world is Wojo? And why do I care about that? So thank you so much for that nugget, because I think that's going to help a ton.
Yeah, I mean, we don't know what we don't know. And we don't know what's in someone's head until we try and figure out a way to ask and get that information from them. And, many times I'll bring my story into it. When I was a kid, I didn't have all these YouTubes. This is me talking to a player. I didn't have all the YouTubes. We didn't have the internet when I was, say, younger. So I had to do it through magazines. I would use my allowance money to buy, the college basketball and pro basketball preseason magazines, because they always had stories. And in that, I was able to see, how hard did Jerry West work? What did Oscar Robertson do to become the player he became? And not that I ever thought I could be those two, but if they did that to become their best, logic stated to me, I should try and do those things to become at least my best, right? So if someone was handing me stuff on Oscar Robertson, Pete Maravich, Jerry West, I would have read it for sure, because I looked up to those people, right? So I don't know, just something for your listeners to think about, because when you're on these things or you're on stage talking, you can provide new information to people, right? You can provide confirmation for people. Yeah. Oh gosh, the Celtics did it that way. The Clippers did it that way. We're doing it that way. We must be doing it okay.
That's right. Yeah.
Or you can provide stimulation.
Yeah.
And in this case, what we're doing right now is just trying to get the listeners just, trying to stimulate their thinking to see, okay, I see what Kevin's doing, but I can actually take it here.
Yeah.
Because by taking it here, that'll be more genuine to me.
The Jamodi podcast is powered by Sideline Interactive. Sideline Interactive is the leading manufacturer for high-quality, innovative scoring tables and LED video display boards that help coaches and schools bring more excitement to fans, create huge fundraising opportunities, and make their jobs easier. Visit sidelineinteractive.com to check out their amazing products.
One of my favorite things is to learn from successful people or their daily habits, because I do think we all get the same 24 hours in a day, but some people use them maybe a little bit better than others. So what are some of your daily habits that set you up for success?
Well, I think the biggest one is self-reflection, and it doesn't have to be like 7 hours. It could be just thinking about something, because after many years of self-reflection, I figured out what's important to me to be the most productive I can be that particular day, and what gets my juices flowing. So for me, I read every day. I spend time alone just thinking. We had the power go off because of the storm yesterday, and it happened around 8 o'clock at night. And that's usually the time where Wendy and I are either watching a movie or a Netflix. It's kind of our hangout time.
Yeah.
Right? I guess when you're younger and you're dating, it's your coupling time. Like we're old.
We watch Netflix too, so me and Jana, no problem.
Yeah. So we're like, gosh, what do we do now? So Wendy went to read on her tablet, so it has the natural, the light. So I just kind of went into a room and just sat there and just started thinking. I thought, wow, it is so quiet.
Wow.
Ryan Holiday wrote a book on stillness and the importance of stillness. And I was thinking to myself, this is what he must mean. You don't hear anything. You hardly see anything. The only thing that's going on is your mind. So I try to find time to think. And then the third thing, I guess, without going like too long on this, is many years ago, I switched from time management philosophy to priority management philosophy. And I switched from only having, I used to call them TTDs, things to do, my things to do list. Well, I added a must do list. And I put maximum of 3 things on that each day. Right? And they could be silly things. I mean, they could be unimportant things, but you just have to get them done because you've let them go too long.
Yeah.
Right? Like one of the things that might be silly to some that is on my priority list today is I'm going to take you can't really see the one side of my office that has all the books, but I'm going to go through the ones that I have read and heavily highlighted and section them off versus the ones that I haven't read. And then I will spend time going through all my highlights to see if they're still important to me at this point in my life with what I'm doing, right? So it may not be like a priority to some other people, but I've been putting that off for so long. And I know that I need to do it because it helps me with my speaking, kind of review some things that I've learned from other people. So, but whatever your priority list is, sometimes I have 2 on there, sometimes I have 3. So those are reading, thinking time, priority management.
A little bit more on reading. I'd love to hear just kind of the types of books that you like to read. But then when you're highlighting, you mentioned going back through them now and seeing the things that you've highlighted in the moment. Do you do anything else with that? Because sometimes I'll go through a book and I'll see that I highlighted something and it is so good, but I didn't really do anything else with it in that moment besides just file it away in my head. Do you have a process there?
Yeah. So I don't know so I'm reading a book now that I actually bought back in 2015. I don't know how all your listeners are, but sometimes I'll buy a book because people say it's really good, put it on my bookshelf because I'm reading something else. And then I don't get to it in this case for 7 years. So it's Alex Ferguson.
Okay.
The book's called Leading. He was a what they call it football over there, soccer coach over in Europe. So this is one of the pages. You might be able to see there's a highlighted piece there.
Yep.
Well, with that highlighted piece, there's 3 letters, LDR. You can probably see it.
I see it.
That means that's a leadership thought. So if I highlight it, it must be important. And if it's important, I should know where it goes, right? So let's see if I have some others that you could really see, because some of them are so small, some of the things that I read. But I can see them. Well, but anyway, like when I circle something, if you can see that there's a circle, that's a book that's mentioned that I have to see if I like it. So a circle means, and then I put the word book. That means it's a book that I should take a peek at. You can see right there, that says SPK. Those are some things I can use for speaking. So that's how I do it. And then I'll now go through, let me see if I can reach over here. Here's one, Jocko Willink, Leadership Strategies and Tactics. So as I go through all these, at some point, I'll reread just the highlighted parts. And if they still resonate with me, I'll probably put it on one of my PDFs on the computer under leadership. Because right now, like Wendy, my wife always says, well, you never read for enjoyment. What do you mean? Everything I read, I enjoy. It's I enjoy different things. Like she says, I can't believe you enjoy all those leadership and sports books. And I said, I can't believe you enjoy all those fiction books. Right? So let's go.
So your wife's not grabbing your leadership books to read, is what you're saying. She's got another genre she likes.
Oh yeah, like if I lose a book here, I lost it, because her hands probably have never touched it. Yeah. But what I'm getting at it now is, since I'm now speaking, I speak on certain topics, right? Leadership, teamwork, culture. I also speak on how to get the best out of yourself, right? Personal development. So I generally read in those areas. So as I go through each book, at the end, I'll say to myself, okay, in my current state of mind, is this something I still would have highlighted? Mm-hmm. If so, then that goes on the PDFs. And it spurs a thought in me that I might be able to use, or I may attribute it in a talk that Alex Ferguson in his book Leading said this, and I think it's a pretty good idea that all of us in this room, in this convention center, should put thought to. So that's how I do it.
That's awesome, because I've never had a good process for taking the things that do jump out at me in a book, but how could I place them, use them, and just not let it fade away in a way. That's great.
And that's why I don't try and use them immediately unless they really jump out. If something really jumps out, I have what I call a WILT notebook, WILT, and that's an acronym for What I Learned Today. And only things that big time jump out would I put in that book, right? And that's over in the top right portion of my desk. So, and sometimes I'll put it on a little piece of paper as I'm going through it, and then I'll transfer. So you might say, well, that's a lot of transferring, but the more I transfer it, the more it locks. Ryan Holiday, I mentioned him. He's a terrific author and speaker, and he writes often on the world of the Stoics, the ancient philosophers. And the way Ryan does it is he has index cards. And every time he comes across a good quote or something in a book, he actually hand writes it on a card and then files it in a category, whatever, philosophy. Yeah. He wrote a book on stillness, so it might go in the stillness thing. And he's got these plastic containers that fit perfectly, the index cards. I think he even has a YouTube on it,
okay.
How I take notes off of my reading.
What's one thing that you do differently if you could start over again today?
So I can tell you the one thing that stands out is this. I hate when people ask questions, what's the one thing?
Okay.
Because it's hard to know.
Take okay, I never.
Okay, so
what would you do differently, Coach? What would you do differently? There you go.
Yeah. Well, the one thing I would do differently. Number one, I would be more in tune with building relationships with the players. When I came up, it was more of a command and control.
Yeah.
Here's what we're doing, you do it. Right? Rather than finding out more about the players. That would be probably number one. Number two, I would try and become a better reader of my team. right? Reading fatigue, reading lack of confidence, reading loss of motivation. All the things that like Doc Rivers is so good at reading his players. So I'd probably be more intentional about that. Um, I would probably, I didn't really break down roles with our guys. I more just put them in positions and assumed that they knew that what I wanted out of them. And I probably would get in deeper in, and also make sure I reminded. This is where Doc was really good. He reminded them throughout the year what their role was, right? But initially, he explained each player's role in front of all the other players.
Oh.
We got around the center jump circle, right? But he had a way of delivering it that even a role that didn't seem very important at all, with his words and how he said it, he can make it feel like it was important. But here was his reasoning for that. He wanted to make sure that the player knew their role, but that the other players knew that player's role. So now everyone on the team knew each other's role, and they could remind them occasionally, hey, that's not what you do for us to win. You got to get back to boom, right? Because sometimes the best messages are those that are sent from player to player rather than coach to player, especially as you get higher up the ladder.
Yeah.
In the pros, there's no question that oftentimes the player message to another player, is more powerful than what a coach could say to that player. And the last thing is, I would I would have had our team spend more time around my family. Because, I used to think that coaching is just compartmentalized and you just keep it in the gym and all that sort of stuff. And what I found out through what coaches are doing nowadays, even like the guy who's leading the game now, right? Coach K.
Yeah.
Right. So I think a lot the players can see a different side, and they can also learn some things that sometimes I wouldn't have been good teaching. Right. So I guess, off the top of my head, those would be the things that jump out. I think probably people were expecting what would I change in man-to-man offense and all that sort of stuff. I was good with that. But these were some things that I thought these were next level things that could have taken our team and our program to next level.
Well, Coach, you just nailed it. That whenever I hear the answer to that question, and you're right, it's never one thing, it's a lot of things. It's never about X's and O's. It's always about, like, nobody ever says, I wish I would have had better baseline out of bounds plays. That would have been the difference maker. It's all about the relationships, the way that they treated people, asking better questions. I love the idea of having family. Like I've just, God definitely blessed me with an amazing wife in Jana, and I definitely would love for my players to get to know her and be around her and see us interact with each other. That's a great nugget, man. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I wish I had done that. That was an opportunity not seized.
Coaches, the one thing that every team needs is confident shooters. The last 8 years at Grapevine Faith, our teams have averaged 354 made threes each season. I love getting to share with coaches how our shooters train, and more importantly, how they think. If you would like to enhance your shooting culture at your school, contact me directly at jamodipodcast@gmail.com.
Well, Coach, so many guys know you, get to follow you, but if you don't mind, we'll do the speed round last, and that way we just get to know you a little bit better.
Okay.
Quick questions. First thing pops in your head. Favorite ice cream flavor?
Combination chocolate vanilla mixed.
Nice.
With some peanut butter.
Oh, good. For high school, shot clock or no shot clock?
Shot clock.
You didn't hesitate on that one. Texting or talking?
Talking, but we'll text.
Yeah. Favorite holiday?
Christmas.
If you could travel back in time, when would you like to go or where?
Well, I guess professionally, maybe back to my first few coaching jobs to do those four things that I didn't do well.
Yeah.
quite honestly. It would keep me from regretting that I didn't do them.
Yeah.
Other than that, I'm really good seeing what's next.
Yeah.
I don't have to go back. I want to learn from the past, but I don't want to live there.
Yeah.
Right. So I don't know that I really would. Maybe it's in the book, but my mom actually committed suicide when I was very young, so I blanked out. I was 5 or 6 years old when it happened, so I was supposed to remember things still, but I couldn't, and still can't. Maybe even going back then and trying to see if I could remember even the. I
Yeah.
guess you don't remember anything at 1 and 2, but 3, 4, and 5.
Yeah.
Maybe remembering some of those things, because all I have now is stories that people tell me about her.
Mm. Place you most want to travel, or your favorite place to travel?
Really, anywhere hanging out with Wendy.
Nice.
I love her. So
I think I'd answer the same way. That's really good.
Yeah.
That's really good.
they're all good spots.
With Janet though.
Yeah.
How many cups of how many cups of coffee do you drink per day?
Probably, if you count it like this one, probably won't be fully down. Probably 1.5.
Okay. Early or when you're more in the coaching side, was the coffee up? I've always seen like some coaches are super high with how much, some guys just never touch it.
Yeah. I probably would sip a third to a half of a cup all day. So I probably wasted the Celtics and Clippers a lot of money. I could have just kept reheating that initial 2 cups. So I'll say the proverbial my bad on that one.
Yeah. Last question, probably the most important coach of the whole talk we've had. And you can also choose neither if it works. Godfather or Star Wars?
Well, I'm not a movie person, so I didn't see either.
That's fair. Not what do you and Wendy like to watch if you guys do choose to binge a little bit on Netflix?
Well, she's good at picking like series.
Uh,
So obviously, one that's popular in sports was Ted Lasso.
you like that?
Yeah, I did, especially
Yeah.
season 1, more so
Yeah.
than season 2.
Yes.
Season 1, I think, had for me more applicable messages, and that's a little bit of my issue. And she'll even say,
You're always trying to learn
Yeah.
something from. You can't just sit back and just relax and watch.
Yeah, the morning show, we watched that.
Yeah.
I might have watched that in like 15 minutes. That's how fast I sped through that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
and there were some others that, but I'm just not as in tune with all that as I should be. For me, it's more I'm watching, like I've watched just about every new coaching hires press conference.
Mm.
I often do that with college football and college basketball for 2 reasons: to see what are the athletic directors saying were the reasons why they hired, right? Because I think that changes over time. 15 years ago, the messaging was a little different. He's a winner. He drives the players hard. And da-da-da. Now it's more, he can develop relationships with the players, right? Winning isn't everything, but it is important. The character, so I probably do more stuff like that.
Coach, this was incredible, and I'm just so thankful that it's inspiring, and for those of us as we kind of grow to remember to give back to other coaches and to invest in people. That, I mean, you don't owe me anything, but man, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it.
No, my pleasure. I think what you're doing for others by getting so many, good people to come in and share. You're just creating learning situations for people, and I got to believe we're going to be impacting a number of people along the way. So, kudos to you for what you're doing. And
I appreciate that. Real quick, if guys want to, follow you, connect with you, check out your website, which is kevineastman.net, and obviously get the book. Anything else that you want to tell coaches?
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm big on bullet points and quick hit things. So if people are on Twitter, they can certainly follow me on Twitter at Kevin Eastman. You won't offend me if you don't. I'm good with that. but it's things on teamwork, development, success, leadership, all those things. Unfortunately, I've been hounded into catching up with the times on Twitter, so they tell me that I have to promote myself every now and then. So disregard those things, right? Disregard my promote my book and all that sort of stuff, but get to the meat of it, because there's much more meat than there is the flash. And then many people ask, can I get how can I get an autographed copy of the book? And there's really only one way to do that, and that's to order it probably through the website. You can just go right to where there links, it links to the book, and then we can do that for the listeners. Otherwise, you can get it on your normal ways you can get it, the Amazons of the world. So, but thanks for asking.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much for your time. This was incredible.
No, my pleasure, Matt. Keep it up.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for checking out today's episode. Please take a moment to subscribe to this podcast, share it with your fellow coaches, and find us on social media for what's coming up next on the Jamodi podcast. It's just a matter of doing it.